Hey, feeling good, like I should. When in dark, walk around the neighborhood. Feeling blessed.
Alrighty, let's get into part 2 of lesson 9.1.1, where we were reviewing about circumference pi and diameter. So we talked, a little bit of vocabulary about the circumference of the circles, the distance around. The diameter of the circle is the distance across from one end of the circumference to the other, or one end of the circle to the other, and it always passes through the center point. And what we learned from the activities that maybe you did yesterday, some of you weren't able to do it, probably most of you weren't able to do it, but at least we talked about it, was that there is absolutely a pattern here and a ratio where the distance across through the diameter is about 1/3 the circumference. So whenever you have the diameter, if you multiply, no, I don't want that, not that at all. If you were to multiply approximately times 3 times the diameter, that would always give you the circumference of the circle, and we use that as sort of our tool for estimating, our scale factor, if you will. If you know what if you're trying to find the diameter, you could take the circumference and divide it by 3, or multiply it times 1/3. Either way, okay? So we plotted some known data. This was from a previous year, a previous class. We plotted this onto a coordinate grid and saw that there appears to be, for the most part, there's a little bit of room for error there. Not everyone's measurements are perfect, but for the most part, it looks like it's following a straight line and goes through 0, 0, which makes this particular situation proportional. And what did we decide based on the information? It looked like it was about 3.18 from our data. We know that pi is technically rounded off to 3.14. And so for purposes of estimating, we would, estimate it to be right around 3, so 3 being your multiplier. And that's where we ended. So today, let's just start with this. If the diameter of a bubble were 9 centimeters, predict the approximate circumference. Okay, so what was our multiplier again? If we know that the diameter is 9, what's the circumference? Well, if we multiply this number times 3, we're going to say it's going to be approximately 27 centimeters. Okay, so now let's officially get pi into this. The ratio of circumference to diameter for circles has been measured with increasing accuracy since before 1650 BC. The ratio has been found to be equal to what we call pi, which is a constant. So like I mentioned yesterday in the video, at some point people started to notice a pattern. So the more times they measured the circumference of circle and measured the diameter of circle, they started to get a more and more accurate reading for pi, until at this point in history, we know that pi can be expressed as 2 different numbers. Let's bring out the calculator here. All right, this particular calculator, your standard calculator, does not have a pi button on it. But if you get a scientific calculator, or you have access to one online, Google scientific calculator will have this button. Right there's the pi button. And when you press that pi button, it'll give you, I don't know how many digits that is. Is that like 25 maybe decimal places? But we always round it off to 3.14. So pi, the decimal equivalent for pi, we're going to say is 3.14. And if you're just using a calculator, a standard calculator, and you always use 3.14, you're always going to get an answer that's a little bit less than the actual answer. And that's okay, because we all have to round it at some point. For instance, let's go back to this particular problem here. If I say 9 times 3.14, well, I guess I can do it by hand. What is that? 36, carry the 3, 9, 10, 11, 12, carry the 1, that's 12, 13. We would say the answer is, what? No. It's 27, 28, people. Okay, So that's significantly higher than 27 because this was rounded down to 3. That's rounded to 3.14. But what if I take 9 times pi and use the calculator to do that? Here's pi, right? Now I'm going to hit times 9, and notice what we get, 28.27. Yep, that would round down to 27. Okay, so these two are remarkably close, right? But this is 100th more than that. So depending on where you choose to round it, you're never going to get the perfect answer because pi is what we call an irrational number. It has to be rounded off. But we're going to get something that's so close it's effectively the correct answer. Now, sometimes when we're working with fractions, it might be better to use pi being equal to the fraction 22 over 7. The only time I would use this fraction is if I was dealing with a measurement that was a multiple of 7. For instance, if you said that the diameter was 7 meters, then I would say, hey, rather than multiply that times 3.14, let's multiply 7 times 22 over 7. And notice how they cancel out. So your answer for the circumference would be 22 meters exactly. So if you ever have a situation where your diameter is a multiple of 7, you might consider using this version of pi. Otherwise, use this version. And now I'm just a little bit curious. 22 over 7 can be converted to a rational number. Let's see what that would be. 22 divided by 7 is 3.1428. So that rounds to 3.14. And this is actually, of all the fractions that we could work with that would not be overly cumbersome, this is the ratio. This is the fraction that comes closest to our pi. But remember, pi is 3.14. I think there's a 1 here and a 5 there. So let's check it. Yeah, 3.1415. So that was pretty close. All right, so shall we start solving some problems here? Work with your team to generalize blah, blah, blah. No, let's not worry about that. Okay, so these problems are not in the online book. I just made these up myself. I like these problems better. So what I'm going to ask you to do, go ahead and pause the video and copy down. You don't necessarily have to draw the image, but if you want to, go right ahead. Here's a beach ball, here's a tennis ball, here's a golf ball. And in the beach ball and the golf ball, you're given the diameter and you have to find the circumference. So you're going to be multiplying the diameter times pi, and you're going to get the measure of the circumference. For the one where you've been given the circumference, if you divide each side by the if you divide each other by pi, then this ends up being the circumference divided by pi is going to give you the diameter. So go ahead, pause, see if you get the same answers that I get when you come back. All right, I've got my answers, and I used my calculator to figure out these answers. Don't be shy about using your calculators here. So in a situation like this, you're going to take 15 times pi, and that's going to give you what your circumference is. So take the number 15, multiply it times pi, or 3.14, and I got the answer of 47.12. Okay, so once again, if you are using 3.14 as your multiplier, let's do this over again, 3.14 times 15, you would have gotten 47.25. Wait, that's not right. All right, I do that, hold on. I did 3.15. Change that. There's no way that would have been higher than this because 3.14 is supposed to be wound down or rounded down. So 3.14 times 15, you would have gotten 47.1. Okay, very close to this. So either one of those answers are acceptable with me. Here's the thing. I know we're doing distance learning right now, and you're going to have multiple choice types of problems, so you're going to pick the best answer. But if we were in school, and this is the answer I thought, and this is the answer you provided, if you show me your work and show me what you're multiplying times 15, and then you show me that this is your answer, you get credit for it. It's correct. not everybody's using the pi button. So just keep that in mind. Okay, and so for this one, we would have taken 10 and divided it by pi. So 10 divided by pi gives you 3.18. Let's see what would have been if you would have taken 10 divided by 3.14. 3.18 again. So either whether you use the pi button or not, you're getting 3.18 inches for the diameter of this tennis ball. And then this one, 1.68 times pi, I got 5.28. Yours is probably close to the same. 1.68 times 3.14. And stop it. Stop. 1.68 times 3.14. There it is. So that's, yeah, they both round up to the same thing. So that's how we work with pi to find either the circumference or the diameter of circles. Now, at some point, we're going to get into the radius of the circle. And we could have a problem like that where if for like this problem, if we needed to find the radius instead of the diameter, we'd have one more step to do. The radius, if you recall, is halfway across. So the radius is always 1/2 the length of the diameter. So if we cut that in half, then we would have the measure of the radius. So just one more thing to be aware of. All right, so go ahead and get started on your homework. And tomorrow we will do lesson 9.1.2.
Hey, feeling good.